Swara Bhasker joins us now. It's wonderful that we can have her. She's somebody who's actually faced a lot of these threats on a constant basis because she speaks her mind. Firstly, in this case, there's a 23-year-old IIT graduate. Now, I accept the fact that, you don't need to be an IIT graduate to be making these threats. But at the same time, it does feel strange that an educated person looking to study, for example, in the United States, who'd worked for a good company, drew a high salary, would be drawn to making sick remarks like this.
Yeah, I think it hits us as educated people in a different way that one among our own, or someone who could so easily have been in our own circle of acquaintance, has this really dark side. But I actually don't find it strange anymore, and I don't find anything strange anymore about the way in which hate and violence are displayed or have been internalized by us as a society and as people and as users of social media. I think the way I see it is that two things. One, we are a society, India is a society that has a rampant rape culture. We are a society that has a very, very unfortunate acceptance of sexual harassment of women, whether it's eve teasing, mild forms like verbal harassment, not mild like that, but like not non-physical harassment, or it's actually, the rape epidemic, I would call it, that we witness in our country and in our society today. That's one thing. The second thing is that, and I think that we should see the arrest of this young man, this 23-year-old techie, who's an IIT graduate, one of the most premier institutions in the country. I think we have to see that in the context of the last 7 years, where social media has been used to, again, generate a sort of hysteria, and a rampant culture of online bullying has been propagated, encouraged, organized, and allowed to flourish with total impunity as to what the people are saying, as long as it's on the side of, within quotes, the dominant discourse.
No, and absolutely. And just to interrupt you for half a second, in this Kohli issue, there was an India-Pakistan match. India played very badly. Mohammad Shami was targeted for his religion. He was targeted as an anti-national. Of course, we all are. And then somewhere down the road, Virat Kohli was targeted when he defended his colleague, and his child, his baby, was targeted as well. But the point that you make is that the dominant discourse allows you to go ahead and criticize or slam Pakistan or people, cricketers, for their religion, or people for their religion, and it's sort of okay.
There are no limits, unfortunately, as far as this mentality goes. And I do want to make the point, see, as far as the cricket match and people winning and losing, I mean, it happens all the time. Maybe I don't, I understand that there's a lot of emotion that is connected with cricket in India, especially India-Pakistan matches. But it's also very obvious the way in which, certain sections use these matches to whip up a certain kind of a narrative, a certain kind of, which really is an ulterior sort of motive to help their own politics, right?
Yeah.
We saw that happening in this case.
Yeah.
I personally think that Virat Kohli showed great leadership, and I just want to say this at this moment, that he was a good captain to stand up for his teammate, and he made, I think he said the right things, he made the right points, he called out the Islamophobia by pointing to it, not avoiding it, and he said that our brotherhood cannot be shaken, that we're 200% behind him, and I think that is a great role model, that's a great example, and he really lived up to his, him being a national icon. But I do want to say that, the fact that not even a national icon like Virat Kohli was spared should make us pause and think. Hate is a fire that cannot be controlled. And I really hope that the people who use this kind of hysteria take a moment and reflect and understand it, because it will come back to bite them in an uncomfortable place at some point, as we have seen in the case of our late External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, who was trolled repeatedly, twice at least, by supposedly people who you would think were the supporters of the party that she was part of, or the ideology that she represented. she was not spared. Our Prime Minister, and I've seen this, I've actually seen this, our Prime Minister, when he tweets Eid greetings,
is trolled.
If you read the comments, he is not spared. So I think that it is important for us to understand that this kind of a culture of such rampant abuse and hatred, it is a fire that you cannot control.
Let me ask you this. How do you deal with people who threaten you? Do you feel physically unsafe?
I don't yet feel physically unsafe. Don't put the thought in my head, Vishnu. But that's because I come from, I come from a place of privilege in that I have the resources to make myself safe. I live in a fairly safe colony. I have people around me. I have a team around me. When I'm in outdoor places or when I'm shooting in where there's lots of crowds, I have a security person with me. So I'm privileged. But I will say that what happens online, it can very quickly translate. The hysteria that is generated online or in electronic mainstream media can very quickly translate into on-ground activity, as we saw in the case of Ram Bhakt Gopal and the CNRC protests and who shot at students. So I think that the idea that, it's okay to say whatever you want, to commit a cyber crime online because it's just online, it's not okay. And I have tried, of course, I don't always read all the comments, but there have been cases where I've actually filed FIRs because I just feel that it's...
What came of those?
Well, one of them is actually quite recent against a YouTube influencer who's incidentally also in his early 20s. I just want to ask the young men in India in their early 20s, what is going on? We should really think about what it is as a society that we are teaching our young people. What is it we're allowing them to do? What is it that we're condoning?
Has there been any progress in this case or in other cases that you've faced?
I must say that in my case, the Delhi police did take cognizance. They found that it was, that IPC sections were violated and the kind of tweeting, trolling and the kind of trends that were being started against me, and they filed an FIR. I gave a statement in the Patiala House Court. There have been cases when police, state police and police departments across India have acted, and I want to really congratulate them for those moments. Delhi police when they took cognizance of my case. Vadodara police when in July 2020 the comedian Agrima Joshua was very badly trolled and threatened with videos by a young influencer called, I think his name was Shubham Mishra, and he went by the thing Badass Shubham Mishra. And he was literally threatening to gang rape her and encouraging other young people to do the same thing. And the Vadodara police took suo motu cognizance of the case and arrested him. So I think it's really important for us as citizens also to see our law enforcement, uphold the law.
So let me ask you a final question, which is this. We now have new IT rules. Objectionable tweets are meant to be taken down in a finite period of time, but there are so many objectionable tweets then that no one really knows if that can actually happen. But the other side of this is that the government can actually allegedly take advantage of the new IT rules and can stifle the freedom of speech. Now you champion the freedom of speech and yet you are attacked because of some warped notion of the ability to write or say whatever they... How do you deal with these, both sides of this debate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that it's, there are two sides. I do want to say that I think that there is a huge misconception amongst us in our society, in our public discourse and culture, that freedom of speech means the freedom to abuse and the freedom to basically say things that qualify as harassment and or hate speech. Freedom of speech is not the freedom to make hate speech or to be inciting hatred or violence against individuals or communities. I think that I also saw, I think that the junior IT minister, Mr. Chandrasekhar, made a statement yesterday about, talking about how that the government, will do more, that they will not allow sort of these kind of problematic posts, and social media cannot become a space where just rampant abuse is happening. And I really sort of hope that he is successful, and I'm glad that he has said that. But equally, it's interesting because I feel that a lot of the times the sources from where these hateful tweets are originating are so many times followed by
people who are
leaders
in positions of authority,
the ruling party,
exactly.
and people who are our elected representatives. I was reading an article on my way here which said that when Sushma ji was trolled, in that case, I think there were two cases, one where she issued medical visas to some Pakistani patients, and one where a visa officer a passport official was transferred for his bigoted behavior or something. And in those cases, in the second of that case, 41 parliamentarians of the BJP were following 200 plus accounts, 8 of which were being followed by the Prime Minister.
Right.
So my point is that when you have, it's become a Frankenstein's monster that now I feel even the government is not knowing how to control. As you're saying, it's a deluge. So I think that there has to be some recognition of the fact that you have bred this Frankenstein's monster. Secondly, as you said, it's okay to have even very, very intense political disagreement. This is, we are a diverse country where, Amartya Sen says we are the argumentative Indians. So that has been part of India's culture. But you cannot break the law.
No.
There is no politics or partisan kind of ideology in that. Nothing should be greater than the rule of law.
Would
in
you
this
like
country.
to see a system on Twitter, and this is sort of crystal gazing, where anonymous users aren't allowed, where everybody has an identity which can be tracked?
I think that you don't have to go that far.
That would end the hate.
I don't think so. It wouldn't end the hate. So much of the hate that I get is literally
from people who
from
have
recognizable people.
Right.
Some of them are blue tick verified handles. So my point is that the hate is not going to end by that. The hate, I don't know if the hate will end in a hurry, but I think that if we create a culture of accountability, and that is what the arrest of this Ram Nagesh Akkubatani has done, or the arrest of Shubham Mishra, or in my case, the Delhi police, filing an FIR against the YouTube influencer. If we create a culture where people understand that they are accountable for their actions even online, where young boys like this Ram Nagesh, who, what a way to ruin your own future.
Life,
you could have been on a flight to the US, and now you have this
chance. You may well be in jail.
You're in jail right now, and you deserve to spend some more days in jail, actually. So I think that if we create a culture of accountability, maybe young people will learn to be a little more responsible if they cannot be humane.
Right. Well, we'll leave it over there. Swara, wonderful speaking to you. My
Thank
first
you.
in-studio conversation in 2 years.